All right, and welcome back to Strange Planet Podcast. And today, we're going to give you a little update on some political news. To start off, we have Mitch McConnell, who announced that he's stepping down, which is probably not only good for the country, but probably the world. And on another note, we have Donald Trump, who is going to be having his immunity case on April 22nd. So this is coming soon. But first, we'll talk about the Mitch McConnell stepping down situation. Rook, Mark, comments?
Well, I, for one, applaud Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell's decision to finally step aside and let some of the other crazy Republicans take over for him. This has been a long time coming, and, you know, I don't want to insult Mitch McConnell's health in any way. Obviously, he has some health issues, and I wish him well in that regard. But at the same time, we also have to remember that this is someone who has made the country demonstrably worse over the course of his tenure, both as majority leader in the Senate and subsequently as minority leader. He, first of all, upended the way that Supreme Court justices get chosen by refusing to even acknowledge Merrick Garland, which was Obama's nominee for Supreme Court justice, even though there was nearly a year left in Obama's presidency. The Constitution gives Obama the right to nominate and the Senate the duty to confirm or deny that nomination. And Mitch McConnell refused to do his job and refused to hold a hearing for Merrick Garland's nomination. That, I think, is the, I don't want to say crowning achievement, but the low point of his career, and something that I think he will be remembered for, probably quite fondly by Republicans, but also by Americans who are concerned about the way that our democracy has been torn apart by partisan politics. Look no further than that decision by Mitch McConnell to say that, it's an election year. We're not going to hear a nominee from a president on a Supreme Court justice. And then when Trump gets in and Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies about a month before the election, now we have to rush through, Trump's pick.
Right.
Like that kind of hypocrisy, I think, will be synonymous with Mitch McConnell's legacy. And not only his hypocrisy, but the way in which he has almost single-handedly destroyed politics. Now, politics was never perfect in this country. It was always contentious. But I think the modern decline of our politics can be seen as something that Mitch McConnell is not singularly responsible for, but I think he had maybe the largest hand in it, other than perhaps Donald Trump.
I agree. And we shouldn't also forget that this is the same guy that used to say that this is where bills go to die. So refusing to do his job was not really uncommon when it came to McConnell. It's kind of sad, but it's true.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with Rook on the whole situation on that end. But one of my problems with it is just that they don't have anyone to be responsible to, like an ethics committee or, do your job police. It's sad to say that these people in power don't have, they say, they have the voters to answer to. Well, that only happens once every 4 years. And if you gerrymander your district, you're pretty much set in stone to stay there forever.
Well, they do have a Senate Committee on Ethics. The problem is that there needs to be a bipartisan, it's a bipartisan committee. And at least if it works the same way in the Senate, which I believe it does, as in the House, there's like an equal number of members on each, on the Senate Ethics Committee. And so you would need some support from Republicans. And if it's your boss, your party leader, you're not going to really, go against them, much less go against someone in your party. But like your party leader, that's a tough sell. also, with respect to elections, like you said, Mark, there's, a Senate election every 6 years, but we have a problem in this country in that incumbency is pretty much normal. People don't lose their seats. Like, I think there's like a 90% or plus reelection rate for members of Congress. And people generally like their representatives, even though everyone else might hate them. And Congress as a whole is not the most respected body in the country. People disapprove, that the Congress has, historically low approval ratings, and yet they keep sending the same representatives back to Congress because they think their representative is actually one of the good ones, which, I tend to disagree with.
Right.
We can't all think that our representative is a good one and then all of a sudden have this low opinion of Congress. That really doesn't make sense. But I guess, if you're only focused on, what and, politicians their job is to be likable. And so a lot of them know how to endear themselves to the public and to their constituents. And they're very charming people. They know how to charm, and they know how to win people's affection. The problem is that when it gets translated to policy, they may be champions for their state in terms of wanting to secure funding for their state or whatever. But when it comes to policies as a whole and their behavior as a whole, I think their leadership is lacking. And I think that's the part of Congress that people disapprove of. And Mitch McConnell, I think, was a large part of that failure of Congress to function appropriately as a legislative body that is there to enact or pass laws that need to be passed. There's no reason for bills to go to die due to filibuster. And when there is a majority consensus on a bill, that bill should be heard on the floor of the Senate and should be voted on, yes or no, up or down. Another failure of McConnell is his failure to hear the impeachment trial of Donald Trump.
Right.
Now,
right.
I mentioned before how the Constitution said, hey, the president gets to nominate a Supreme Court justice and the Senate has to confirm or deny the nominee of the president. Doesn't say during an election year or if it's a member of your fucking party. No, it's pretty clear what your job as the Senate is. And Mitch McConnell failed that. He also failed to hear the Senate trial for Donald Trump. Donald Trump was duly impeached by the House of Representatives. They passed articles of impeachment and sent those articles of impeachment to the Senate. And Mitch McConnell just sat there and said, nope, we're not going to do it. We're not going to impeach. We're not going to hold the impeachment trial. I guess if, since I'm, no longer going to be majority leader and Chuck Schumer is going to be majority leader in a few weeks, I guess I'm just going to, let him do it and, not do it while Donald Trump is a sitting president. Then when the Senate under Chuck Schumer holds the impeachment trial, Mitch McConnell condemns Trump for what he did in terms of January 6th. He said it was horrible and whatever. Like he said all these things about Trump that, Trump, sort of betrayed us. And then he said, well, but I'm not going to vote for impeachment because, he has to be in office in order to impeach, which is number one, bullshit. You don't have to be impeach. And number two, it was your fucking job to do that, and you didn't do it when you were there.
Right?
You said no. You just sat on it and didn't do anything. So
he's trying to play both sides of the coin. You know what I mean?
Look, I wish Mitch McConnell, good health, and hopefully he decides to retire and enjoy, going home to Kentucky. But I also think he has been poison to this country's political body, and he needs to, November, when he is set to step down, can't come soon enough.
Yeah, amen to that. Because, that was well put and well said. Because when you look back at the track record of his entire, career or whatnot, I can't think of anything really good that he's done, really. It's just dodging and not doing his job is really what it seemed like is really the foundation of what he is and what he did. You know what I mean? Like, can you think of anything positive that he's actually done? Because I can't. You know what I mean? So, yeah, like I don't think there's anything there. And going back to what you were saying about politicians being likable and, presentable and stuff, that's not only 100% true, but like I always say with any politician, doesn't matter who it is, never listen to what they say. Because like he said, the charm card is always what they're going to do. They're going to say stuff that you want to hear. What you need to focus on is the actions. You need to see what they're actually doing. You know what I mean? So they're going to say a lot, but who knows if they're going to do a lot of what they say. And then it turns out after they're in, they might do a lot of the opposite of what they said. And then it's too late to really do anything about that now, isn't there? I guess moving forward, we are going to be talking also about Donald Trump's immunity case that's coming up on April 22nd, which is about a month away. Give or take almost 2 months away. I feel like this is actually very serious. Because when you're talking about immunity, the president doesn't have that. It never has. So why all of a sudden would it be the case now?
Well, look, I mean, so immunity is this idea that stemmed from the Justice Department. And the Justice Department, many years ago, put out a memo or internal policy that says that, you can't prosecute a sitting president for a crime. Now, this has never been tested in the courts because generally presidents aren't fucking crooks that, commit crimes like, left and right. That certainly wasn't the case with Donald Trump. And so this notion that a sitting president can't be, prosecuted for a crime was basically the impetus for moving forward with the impeachment mechanism, the impeachment remedy, which requires political will, which the Republican Party obviously didn't have. So this notion of immunity, Trump is trying to extend it not only for during the course of his presidency, but also, post-presidency. And it's kind of, ridiculous because does being president prevent him from being on trial for a crime for the rest of his life? Like, essentially, that's what he's asking of the court.
But no one's above the law.
Well, you would think so, but again, you have to remember that this court, a large portion of it was handpicked by Trump.
That's the scary part.
Including a stolen justice, as I mentioned before, that Mitch McConnell facilitated, and so there's no telling what the court might do in terms of allowing Trump to go on trial. It's definitely going to be it's a question that we've all wondered throughout Trump's presidency and after it. Whether a former president, can be prosecuted successfully by our criminal justice system. And if the answer to that turns out to be no, then this country is no longer, I'm afraid, a democracy.
Right. Right.
If you're allowed to take power and have immunity from prosecution, that I think is the end of democracy.
That's dangerous, is what that is, especially for future sense. You know what I mean? Because we're dealing with this clown in this situation right now, but there's no telling what could happen another 10 years from now when some clone may try to replicate this in some fashion.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
And then what?
I mean, so it's not even a matter of whether Trump is guilty or not. I mean, obviously, we have our opinions as to Trump's guilt, and in some cases, it's been pretty obvious the crimes that he's committed.
Yeah, some of them he did live on air.
Putting that aside, are we really going to say or have the Supreme Court decide, you know what? Presidents can do whatever the fuck they want. They can break the law, and the only remedy for their action is to have the political party that the president belongs to be like, oh, you went too far. You have to leave office. And, you know, if they've already left office, there's nothing you can really do to them afterwards, even though they were prevented from doing something while they were in office. Trump could literally shoot someone on Fifth Avenue today, and he just can't be prosecuted for it. I mean, I think that notion is ridiculous, and I would hope that the Supreme Court would take a long view of what this decision and its impact will be on the future of our country. It's likely that even if they do side with Trump, they might do so on like narrow grounds or say that, oh, this only applies in this case, but not necessarily in future's case. They might try to take a pussy way out and to say yes.
Just to kind of protect him for some weird
reason. They might say, oh, well, because of circumstances, you know, Trump is immune under these narrow circumstances. And this doesn't necessarily mean that other presidents can't be prosecuted, blah, 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 if we so choose at the certain time. Yeah. Like, I hope they're not prepared to do that, but we have to be prepared that they are prepared to do that.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
You know, I think that, you know, this Supreme Court has shown that it is not willing to be bound by precedent or fairness. You know, they are willing to upset the rule of law and what has been expected of them as a court in terms of, you know, stare decisis and having precedents being upheld. But we'll see. It's going to be interesting. We're going to have, you know, actual justices weigh in on a question that they've been dodging for a long time now. And so hopefully they will come back with definitive answers and not just some wishy-washy, like kick the can down the road, but bail out Trump temporarily. I hope they come out with something definitive, and so that we know what kind of country we are dealing with going forward, whether we are a democracy or whether we are some, you know, we have an office that's up for grabs in which you're able to do whatever the fuck you want and get away with it. And that office will be sought after by people who have evil intentions and are willing to carry them out, you know, whether it's assassinating their political opponents or, you know, things that are Putin-esque in terms of imposing their will over people. If it's the case that you are immune from prosecution, then that's not something to be proud of in this country. And I hope the Supreme Court is wiser than that. I hope
a better decision. Yeah, I hear you there. Because like democracy, despite what people may realize or know or even think at this point, is pretty much on the line at this point. It really is, because that's a scary situation. And what's even scarier about it is if they do try to take the cop-out method and just to kind of, for whatever reason, just protect him and then try to make it seem like, oh, well, this can't be done again or whatever the case may be. It almost seems like all this is happening just so they could protect the Republican reputation, if that even is a thing. But you know what I mean? So like, it may not be about him as much as you think, as much as him corrupting the party. You know what I mean? In a sense. So if they can try to weasel their way around to bail him out, it'll make them look a little less bad rather than do the right thing. you know what I mean? And have the consequences come out and then deal with it head on like it should be, but it's not.
I don't know. I do not have faith in the Republican Party.
I never did, but but that's kind of, this is the situation we're dealing with here. And April 22nd is going to be an interesting day. Tell you that.
Well, you know, I mean, it's interesting that they're following a lunatic. I mean, and I say this because he comes up with stuff like, oh, I'm too rich to pay a $91 million bond for a $300 million lawsuit that I lost.
Yeah, like what sense does that make?
Well, just to be clear to everyone, like the case is going to be heard on April 22nd, but that doesn't mean that we'll get a decision, and we most likely won't get a decision on April 22nd.
No, that's just when it starts.
We're likely to get a decision, because when Supreme Court cases are heard, they're just heard, but then the justices don't have to make a decision, and they usually don't make a decision right away. They go and they, take weeks and weeks and weeks to have their clerks draft decisions, and they hold meetings, and they figure out what they're going to do. But the April 22nd date is really, they're going to hear oral arguments, and
it's a starting point.
But the case may already be decided. Who knows? Who knows what, if they already have the decisions made. They can hear all the oral arguments, but they don't have to listen to them. They can decide whatever the fuck they want. And all it means is that we'll likely have a decision by June, which is like the end of the Supreme Court's current term. So it looks like they want to make a decision on this issue of immunity by the end of the Supreme Court term in June.
All right.
They are really stretching this out, man. They're stretching this. They're trying to get to the goal line, which is the election. Oh my God. Can we just put this guy behind fucking bars already?
I mean, that's where he should be, realistically.
Yeah, no, realistically, yeah, he should be behind bars. With the amount of stuff he's been indicted with, it's just like, why are you walking around free?
Yeah, if anyone else did half of that or even a quarter of that, it'd be an entirely different situation, and it would have been case closed by now. Not him, though, for whatever reason. This is why.
Does this mean I can identify as rich and get away with stuff?
I guess you could just say whatever you want. Yeah, that's what he does. I don't know if it'll get you as far as it got him, but. And that's all we got for this week, everyone. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications. Strange Planet will have new episodes on YouTube every Friday. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.